Go ahead and start them.
So if you started the stream yet, yep. So I'm going to go ahead and share in my groups.
Are you going to be able to monitor the Facebook?
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing it from my phone.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out.
And good afternoon once again, everyone. About to do another community conversations. And joining us in the studio is Mr. Frank Gilbert. He is the Libertarian nominee for Lieutenant Governor. Earlier, we had on Kelly Kraut, the Democratic nominee. We have reached out to the Republican nominee, Leslie Rutledge, still waiting to hear back from her campaign. But with all these races, we're going to make a good faith effort to reach out to all of the candidates so that you can hear from them. So if you want to go ahead and share this video, drop your questions and your comments in the video, and we'll be starting very shortly.
Indeed, we got about 45 seconds before the intro rolls.
All right, well, you know, you'll introduce us and then I'll kick it off.
Yeah, do you want me to do the disclaimer or are you going to do it?
I'll do a disclaimer. I just need you to start off the deal.
Okay. Well, I asked because I left it pulled up so I can make sure that.
Oh, okay. Well, if you got it put up, you got it down pat. Don't let me stop you.
We'll see what happens. I don't know if I have it down pat, but I do have it nearby. All right. So our underwriting announcement is now gone. We got 30 seconds. KLEK 102.5 FM. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome once again to Community Conversations, a very special edition of Community Conversations. It's political season, and we have Mr. Frank Gilbert here. He is the Libertarian candidate for Lieutenant Governor. And before we get started, let me go ahead and give this disclaimer. KLEK 102.5 FM and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council does not endorse, support, or oppose any issue, topic, public official, or candidate for office. The content in this stream is provided for educational purposes to serve the public interest of keeping citizens informed. We will not tell you how to vote, who to vote for, but we do encourage you to make your voice heard, get out there and vote. Mr. Leganzi.
All right, and thank you so much, Alan. And just before we get into our interview, thank you to everyone who came out to our donor appreciation brunch today. But I'll let Alan and T-Rail go more into that when they do the No Name show at 3:30 p.m. So as Alan said, joining us is Mr. Frank Gilbert, the Libertarian nominee. So welcome, Frank, to the studio. And as always, we start off with just kind of telling the viewers and the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you decided to run for Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, friend, for the opportunity, and what a pleasure to be here in the studio. This is an amazing technological place. Frank Gilbert has been involved in politics in Arkansas for, seems like a lifetime. Started out in politics as a Republican, was elected coroner of Grant County when I lived over there. Served one term, was pleased to have been of service to the folks of Grant County, but if you ever get a chance to be a coroner, don't do it. After a few years of recovery from that, I had left the Republican Party and ran as an independent for mayor of the little town of Tull, and was elected, served 2 terms there, and got to be involved in a water controversy while serving as mayor. The previous mayor told me that whiskey was for drinking and water was for fighting over. For 8 years, we fought over water, and we were able to win the court battle, but we finally settled the question. And I left the office happy to have served, but happy to be out of office as well. In a few years, decided to get active in politics again, this time as a Libertarian, and was elected by the folks in the DeKalb Township of Grant County to serve as their constable. And since that time, I've run for several political offices as a Libertarian, always running for offices that I'm unlikely to win, because I learned early that when you win an election, people expect you to do things. And running this year for Lieutenant Governor is an opportunity for me to continue talking about libertarian politics, how it works, what it doesn't do, and what it could do to make Arkansas a freer and better place for its citizens.
Well, absolutely. And let's kind of talk about that just a little bit. You say that you switched from Republican to Libertarian, and you said that you run for offices, even though you realize that the likelihood of winning may not be that great, but know that you care about spreading libertarian principles. Let's kind of talk about what some of those libertarian principles are, because some people may not know what exactly the Libertarian Party stands for.
Yes, sir. It gets confusing for folks who are used to the left-right paradigm of politics. Republicans, conservatives on the right, liberals, Democrats on the left, and libertarians. If you look at our positions, position by position, you think that we're in the middle and confused, because we agree with folks on the left on issues of civil rights and rights of individual freedom. We agree with politicians on the right about the rights of self-defense and issues of that nature. But it all stems from a core belief that every individual has an absolute right to live his or her life in any way they choose, so long as they don't interfere with the absolute similar rights of every other human being on the face of the earth. From that, it's pretty easy to extrapolate what you believe on any position. If they're not stealing from me, if they're not hurting me, if they're not defrauding me, leave them alone. The government shouldn't be involved in anything unless somebody has committed a violent act, has stolen something, or defrauded another individual. That's libertarianism in a nutshell.
Okay, and does this apply to both social and fiscal issues? Because, you know, some people, you know, their most important issue is abortion. Some is taxation. Some may be some other kind of social cause. So how does that apply across the spectrum of different issues?
For me, for instance, on the abortion question, which is the most divisive one in our society at this time, I believe that life begins at conception. I believe that it should be protected, that taking a life at any point in a lifetime is a sin. But it falls back to the old question, it's against my religion, therefore you can't do it. No, that's not the way it works. It's against my religion, I can't do it. We have to come to an agreement somewhere as a society, not as churches, not as pastors or deacons or anyone else, but a consensus of when we believe life begins. And at that point, then the protection applies. The state does have the right to intervene. If I go crazy and jump across here and try to hurt someone else, then the state has the right to intervene. The police come in, they arrest me, they handcuff me, they take me to jail. I go to prison if I'm guilty. But when does that happen with abortion? And I'm not willing to apply my beliefs on every woman in America. So I think we're going to have to come together and figure out a position where we can tolerate each other's choices. And though I believe conception is the moment, I'm agreeable to a compromise somewhere in between, because nearly anything we do at this point will be better than what we've done for the last 50 years, which is allow children to be killed just moments before their natural birth.
Well, and I think you could also make a point that in an ideal world, there would be things in place to where it never gets to that point, to where, like the prevention tools. I mean, yes, obviously faith teaches us, to abstain, but we know that this is the real world. Not everybody does that. So for those that don't abstain, what can be put in place? And this is not a question, this is just kind of a quick little commentary. And these are my own thoughts, by the way, that we put things in place to where, it's not even getting to that point, that there's prevention measures in place. And even after the fact, that there's things in place too, if someone does, whether they're by choice or because it is now the law that they have to carry a child to term, that there will be things to help that child grow up to be a productive citizen. Because you don't want to get in a situation where, okay, people now have to have kids and they grow up to be criminals, or they're just a drag on society instead of an uplift to society. But those are just a couple quick questions. But anyway, Allison got about 20 minutes. I don't want to spend the whole 20 minutes talking about that. So let's go to your website. It is frankgilbert.org. Again, it's frankgilbert.org, where you can learn more about Frank and you can get registered to vote. And of course, again, we're not going to tell you whether you should vote for him or not. You make that decision, but definitely register to vote if you're not registered. And of course, donate. But I guess I see three main issues on here. I want you to kind of just touch on them. So first is live free, keep all you earn, and consent of the government. So let's start with live free. So kind of talk about what that means to you and your position on that.
It boils down to self-governance. And that's, if we self-govern, we don't have to worry about the police. But that's two components to it. First is you govern yourself. You're not trying to govern everybody else in the world. You start by governing yourself. And once you do focus on yourself, then you actually govern. You don't cut yourself slack that you don't cut to other people. You choose to live your life in such a way that you're not offensive to other people or causing grief for other people. And that's what live free is. It's not that you're free to do anything you want to anytime you want to do it. You're free to do what's important to you without giving offense to others.
Okay, and under the Live Free tab on your website, you mentioned the Arkansas Township Amendment. It says the Arkansas Township Amendment is a good template for allowing the voters to take direct action at the local level without having to wait for the quorum court, the governor, or legislature to act. So kind of just tell the listener a little bit about what the Arkansas Township Amendment is.
It's an effort to change the Constitution to allow local townships a lot more self-governance than they currently have. It's not designed to generate any additional money, just funds that counties or cities are currently using could be used by townships instead, to allow those local citizens to affect the changes in their neighborhoods that they consider important. Because when I lived in Tull, Arkansas, 400 people, it becomes obvious, you know everybody in the community, they know you, everybody knows which states need, which roads in the city need help. But trying to get the county judge to do that is difficult because he's covering the whole county and the governor can't be bothered by the streets in Tull. So the Township Amendment is a way to authorize and empower local communities to do what's important to them for themselves. And when I moved in January to the city of Little Rock from the town of Tull, it was a shock to me to find that Little Rock is not one huge town, one big city. It's hundreds of communities and neighborhoods that just happen to be close together. I live in the Petaway neighborhood in old Little Rock, downtown area. And the folks who live there have as much closeness, both in proximity and in affinity to each other as we did when I lived in the tiny town of Tull. That's where the best governance happens, where you know everybody, where you have a policeman or the constable in that area who not only knows everybody, but he's beholden to them for his job. He doesn't need qualified immunity that protects the big city cops and the sheriffs from their responsibilities, like happened over in Mulberry recently. A constable knows the folks, and the folks know him, and he doesn't control them. They control him as he goes about the small job of keeping us from blundering into each other accidentally or on purpose. That's what the township amendment is all about. And how we go about doing that is going to involve a lot of changes, and it's going to involve a lot of input from a lot of people. But until we start, we can't get it done. And this is just the beginning of that effort.
I want to bring Allie in just for a second. Allie, did you have any questions or comments for Frank?
I find the idea of a township initiative to be it's different.
Yes.
But it's not different in a bad way. I think it's something that could benefit, especially small towns in Arkansas. I'm from a small town in Arkansas called Luxor that most people have never heard of.
Yeah.
So I think something like that could be very beneficial.
So many people in those small communities, and it's true of Luxor and Tull, but I'm finding out it's true of Petaway too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people get cut off and isolated, and they lose their self-governance, their power to control their local community. And it is a frightening thing to see. People who are in that condition are susceptible to outside influences that are not positive.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next up on the website is Keep All You Earn. And I think that's probably definitely something of note, considering the most recent tax cut that the legislature passed.
And not only that, friend, we are learning the power of the hidden tax, inflation. I got my new property tax statement from the city of Little Rock. Actually, it's from Pulaski County, but we haven't lived there for 5 months now, and our property taxes that our monthly payments for our house are based on went up about 30%. And, shock and awe, man, my house payment before I even make the 6th one is looking to go up about $100 a month. And when you buy a house, you sort of stretch the budget sometimes, and we stretched the budget, and now that rubber band has snapped and popped us right in the face. So I called the assessor, the notice that we got, that gave the number to call if you thought it needed to be considered. And we called it, and they're busy. Boy, they're getting lots of calls. And so they didn't answer my questions. They just set me up for an appeal. And the young appeal officer called, and he's busier than the ladies at the front desk were. And I started asking questions, and I think he took a little offense. And before it was over with, he basically told me, pay your taxes, sit down, and shut up. And topped it off with a threat that if I didn't, he was going to suggest to the Board of Equalization that they raise it even higher than he had suggested. Now, friend, that'll get your attention. That kind of power and authority is awesome. And when you wield it by a young man who's probably in a bind, but not showing a lot of discretion, it becomes abusive real quick. And the legislatures under the sway of the rich and the powerful, everybody knows that when they go to Little Rock to legislate, they're looking to satisfy the tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations that put them in office. They're not real concerned about what Frank Gilbert's concerns are. They're worried about how they're going to get enough money to win the next primary and then the general election that follows. And as a result, we get those tax reforms that seem to benefit the rich and powerful more than the weak and needy. And the middle class, like us, caught in the middle, don't know where to turn. But the legislature seems not to be the place to turn because, in my opinion, they're bought and paid for already.
Okay, so how do you balance having the revenue to do what's needed and at the same time allowing people to, as on your website say, keep what you earn, you know, and have the balance to do what's needed for the greater good of society and also for the individual?
When you look at where our money is spent, whether at the federal level, the state level, the county level, the city level, or even the township level, a lot of what we do is not necessary. In a sane world, nobody would be prosecuted and imprisoned for smoking an herb. The fact that we are spending lots of money to catch people doing drugs is insane. And not only are we spending that money, we're using it in ways that allows police officers to do no-knock raids where they kick a door in and injure or kill people, or things like dogs wind up injured more than is necessary in those raids. And sometimes they're going into the right place and sometimes they're going into the wrong place. And wherever they're going, they shouldn't be. If we could change that one thing, if we could make the use of drugs regulated the way the use of alcohol is, we could save more money than we can imagine. We would also reduce the violations of our individual rights, and we would make the state, the city, the county a safer place and spend less money. Then that money can be invested in ways that actually helps people. And I'm not talking about defunding the police, because we need police. When I have something go bump in the night and I want to call 911, I want somebody to answer and I want somebody to come. My wife fell in our living room the other day and she couldn't get up. I couldn't help her. She is recovering. She cracked a rib is the worst of it. But at the time, we were really frightened. And the ambulance showed up quickly. The young EMTs did a marvelous job and gave us good advice of what to do. And those kind of things have to be funded. The police, the EMT, those kind of things have to happen. But so much of what every level of government does is more about making the rich people in West Little Rock or the affluent in the good parts of Pine Bluff feel comfortable and taken care of, while the rest of the city, the rest of the county is left out in the Old West.
Well, we're definitely praying that your wife continues to recover and is fully restored. Stick with Frank Gilbert, Libertarian nominee for Arkansas Lieutenant Governor. If you have a question or a comment, you can go on our Facebook Live. I don't see any comments, but you can still weigh in. And of course, even after this interview is over, you can still drop your questions and comments. And Frank, hopefully we'll get a chance to drop in on the comments and answer any questions or concerns. All right, so getting back to the website, the final part of your platform is consent of the governed.
And that boils down to the combination of the other two things. If we are allowed to do what we wish to with our lives, we will give our consent to the other things that need to be done. I don't enjoy paying taxes. I'd rather not. But I understand the need for it. It's a less than perfect world, and there are people out there who would do us ill. And we're not capable of defending ourselves under every circumstance. So if you will allow me the discretion to live my life without too much interference from the code enforcement folks and the petty bureaucrats and the tax collectors, I will gladly pay for those services that we all need and that we all benefit from.
Okay, and is there anything else that we may not have covered that you would like to discuss or just say to the listeners and the viewers?
Friend, I appreciate that. And I think probably the thing that comes to mind is the extreme polarization of our society. It seems like Team Red and Team Blue have whipped up their bases to the point that there's so much anger and fear around every election that there is no opportunity to find any points of agreement. And I would encourage voters to consider voting for any libertarian that they see on the ballot. Not because we're smarter than other people or that we have a better grasp of the world than other people, but we are not caught up in that dichotomy of I'm right, you're wrong, I hate you, you have to stop. That has to stop. And the quickest way to do it, in my opinion, is to vote for independents, libertarians, those non-aligned Republicans and Democrats, the few that are left, who are not part of Team Red or Team Blue. We need to do something to stop that. And I hope that we as libertarians are part of that solution.
All right, well, thank you so much for stopping by today. We've been speaking with Frank Gilbert, Libertarian nominee for Arkansas Lieutenant Governor, and you can get more information about his campaign at frankgilbert.org. And of course, Kayla K and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. We provide these interviews for informational purposes only. Election day is November 8th. Early voting starts October 24th. And you have till October 8th to register to vote, but do not wait, get registered to vote now. Also, October 3rd, 10 o'clock a.m., we will have our Arkansas Lieutenant Governor's debate. And we have Mr. Gilbert confirmed, and we have Mrs. Kelly Kraut, who we had on earlier this morning, confirmed. We are still working to confirm the Republican nominee, Mrs. Rutledge, and we're also working on her individual interview as well. All right, with that, you guys have a great and blessed day. This is Kate, LEK. 102.5 FM. All right, so Ellie's going to stop the broadcast and the stream. And like I said, Frank, again, I hate that.
He's gone.
He was just, you and I both know what he was going to say, and you'll tell him that I said I sincerely appreciate what y'all are doing.
Yes, sir.
This is important.